Hi there, everybody. Pastor Kathy here. I thought I would just share with you a devotional from one of the Bibles that I have that was written by Gloria and Bill Gaither. And in it, they have a smattering of hymns and also many songs that they have written over the years and devotionals or background stories to some of those songs. And I know many of you remember one of the songs that my mum and dad often used to sing together, and we used to sing together at church. And it was "I'll Worship Only at the Feet of Jesus." Let me just read the lyrics of the of the song to you, and then I'll just share a devotional that I believe Gloria Gaither has written around this particular. Well, it's not a hymn, but a gospel song that they wrote. The words of the song go: "I went to visit the shrine of plenty, but found its storerooms all filled with dust. I bowed at altars of gold and silver, but as I knelt there, they turned to rust. So I'll worship only at the feet of Jesus, his cup alone, my holy grail. There'll be no other gods before him, just Jesus only will never fail. The call of fortune made me a pilgrim to journey to fame's promised heights. But as I climbed, the promise faded, and wind blew lonely through the night. Just desert dust and empty shadow, all promises that turned to lies. The gods of earth fail and betray me. You alone are my truth and life. So I'll worship only at the feet of Jesus, his cup alone, my holy grail. There'll be no other gods before him, just Jesus only will never fail. Isaiah 6:1-3 says, "Come and let us return to the Lord, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live in his sight. Let us pursue the knowledge of the Lord. His going forth is established as the morning. He will come to us like the rain, like the latter rain and former rain to the earth." It is curious to most new millennium minds that the first and greatest commandment for both Judaism and Christianity is, "You shall have no other gods before me." We find that in Deuteronomy 5:7. Jesus echoed this commandment when he summed up all the law and the prophets and encapsulated his own mission statement by saying in Matthew 22, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself." My goodness, we need that message today. Many things have become idols in people's lives, and not just material possessions, but status, and even the terrible things we see at the moment about gender and race relationships. Those things have actually become idols in our culture. The old word for what the commandment forbid is called idolatry. Since we don't live in a multi-deity culture, we tend to think that we aren't idolaters. Graven images, sun gods, moon goddesses, sacrifices to the Nile River, sacred cows, all these seem ridiculous to most religious Western minds. Of course, we worship the one true God. Idolatry was in another time, in another place, right? In his book, Addiction and Grace, Gerald May confronts our self-righteousness and calls it addiction, another word for idolatry. It is addiction that keeps our love for God and neighbours incomplete. It is addiction that creates other gods for us. Because of our addictions, we will always be storing up treasures somewhere other than heaven. And these treasures will kidnap our hearts and souls and strength. We counter immediately by saying, I've never been addicted, I've never abused drugs, and I'm not an alcoholic. Yet in truth, attachments to things and relationships other than God himself usher us unwittingly into what Gerald May calls addictions that make idolaters of us all. Idolatry is the opposite of freedom. Jesus said, therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. He is personified truth, and anything that entices us away from him, even so-called good things, can beguile and addict us. Anything that becomes our pleasure center, taking the place of God as our measuring stick for joy, is addiction and idolatrous. Sadly, this loss of balance, this skewing of focus, is capable of eventually destroying the very pleasure it seems at first to deliver. I have a habit of reading ads and listening to commercials. Ad agencies are pros at naming the deep spiritual needs we all share, then tying those needs to a promise of fulfillment, though through some product. What do we need? Acceptance, happiness, peace, a place to belong, security, love, to be valued. Things that promise to satisfy our longing are standing in line. Our economy is fueled our being convinced us we can't live without products that didn't exist a decade ago, last year, or even last month. Yet we drive the cars, furnish our houses with the couch and easy chair, cover our floors with the carpet of hardwood, send our kids to the schools, wear the designer lines and the makeup, carry the leather briefcases, and only grow more restless and empty. Few of us would actually admit that we think products and artifacts could ever satisfy the hungers of the soul. Yet Christians and non-Christians alike find it nearly impossible to resist the beguiling promises of an easy fix, then truly simplifying our lives. Refocus our affections and embrace unadulterated truth with our fear or hesitation. Sadly, instead of keeping God the measuring stick for all joy and pleasure, we all too often let our addictions become the measuring stick for God. We attach our spiritual hungers to the things we invent to express our worship, our style or our modes of expression, our theological systems, certain emotional or cerebral or artistic experiences connected with religion. Some of us have fallen for the high we get from doing good, helping others, for being applauded in one way or another. Our God might be building churches or holding meetings, influencing and motivating audiences, creating beautiful liturgy, evangelizing the neighborhood, feeding the poor. As good as these things are, they are not God himself. No wonder Jesus said to those who scoffed at Mary for wasting the precious perfume of her love at the feet of the Master, he said, she has done a good work for me. for you have the poor with you always. He knew that helping the poor naturally results from adoring him, but when helping the poor becomes the focus, it turns us into idolaters who have lost the joy of the journey with him. In the classic case of King Arthur and his knights at the Round Table, Arthur searches for the Holy Grail, the cup that his lord had offered to his friends that night in the upper room. It becomes a tangible reminder to Arthur and his knights to drink the cup of sacrifice and service, calling them to righteous living and noble deeds. The search leads them into all kinds of adventures and conquests. In the process, the search for the Grail becomes such an all-consuming quest that the dear Lord himself fades from view. As good as these men aspire to be, as urgent as their search becomes, they lose sight of the face of Jesus and his hands that held the cup. The book of Hosea, the prophet, is a call to all who have ever gone off on adventures of misplaced affection. A dear yearning in the voice of God rings even through the warnings of destruction. Listen to the lover of our hearts. He says, I don't want your sacrifices. I just want your love. I don't want your offerings. I want you to know me. O Judah, for you also there is a plentiful harvest of punishment waiting, and I wanted so much to bless you. But what a merciful God we have, that in spite of our unfaithful, fickle hearts, his love calls us always back to the true center where we can find healing and wholeness. His resurrection has brought us the cup of joy. It's a very interesting devotional, isn't it? And quite thought-provoking in many ways, because we can, we read here, put certain things as idols in our life and not even think that they are. But anything that you do, even things that we do for the Lord, if they become the focus rather than the Lord himself, then that can become an idol. That's quite a challenge, because even in the goodness of our heart, we can do things that we believe are being a good Christian and honoring the Lord. But if it becomes the focus and more than the Lord, then it becomes an idol. And I find that myself even quite confronting, and really makes me stop and think. Maybe what I've read here, you've thought to yourself, well, yeah, look, maybe there are some things in my life that have become an idol, and I need to surrender them to the Lord. I need to spend time with the Lord. He wants a relationship with you and me. He doesn't just want all the things that we can do for him. Those things that we do for him will come out of a relationship. But if those things in themselves become the thing that we're trying to get our satisfaction out of, then they'll turn to dust, as the words of that beautiful song. Let's just sing that beautiful chorus together. Sing it with me if you like. So I'll worship only at the feet of Jesus. His cup alone, my holy grail. There'll be no other gods before him. Just Jesus only will never fail. I trust those words have ministered to your heart and helped to perhaps realign your relationship with the Lord. Draw close to him and let him love you and have fellowship with you. It's a two-way fellowship. It's us and him. I pray that you would just take a few moments, perhaps just to stop and think about some of the things that you're doing in your life. and surrender them afresh to the Lord. And allow him to speak to your spirit, to your heart. And maybe just shine his light on areas that may have become an idol for you. I pray that you will just find fresh joy in your relationship with the Lord again today. God bless you. Go with God and he'll go with you.